Hello, welcome to Small Ball. We're live. So it's Tuesday. Okay. I want to apologize for two things. Two apologies. Before I do that, I'm going to notify the world that we're live. So today is Tuesday, as we already have mentioned. So I do want to apologize for two things, like I said. And as I hear notify the world, bang, bang. There we go. I want to apologize two things. Number one, I felt like last show we were kind of, I say we. I felt like last show I was kind of just off. Like it just didn't feel great. And I watched it afterwards, and it was just choppy. And it was still, it's a nice little show, but didn't really have the oomph that I think we normally do. So for no particular reason, I don't know. We had one segment the entire show. I was hoping to get to a lot more, and I was slow. I was like not concise. So I apologize for that. And number two, we have a Tuesday today because that's how, the world works. But we don't, unfortunately, have a Tuesday top 10. I'm very sorry about that. A couple of reasons. I want to be bang bang today, and I want to get this done, obviously, before Game 6 starts. And we also have a lot of Game 6 stuff to discuss. Maybe later in the week I will do a Tuesday top 10. I don't know. But today we do not have a Tuesday top 10 coming at you, so I apologize for that as well. Lastly, before I begin the show today, the crux of the show, if at any point you have any questions for me, we can do a Q&A, 100%. So if there are no questions, I'll just, kind of go on with what I have planned. But I did allow for some time for questions for sure. So today would be a great Q&A day. Anything about baseball or otherwise, honestly, like I'm in a open-minded kind of mood today. So any questions about, any other sport is fine. That's just how I'm feeling today. Okay. And again, like I said, we're going to be bang, bang. We're going to get through this pretty quickly. Let me just fix this. Perfect. Because Game 6 is almost upon us. Here we go. So Game 5 was fascinating, in my opinion. Game 4 was one of the wildest games. Needless to say, World Series games that I have ever seen. I think number one, easily to me, is still Game 5 in 2017 between the Astros and the Dodgers. But this could very well be number two. I think Game 6 in 2011 probably edges it out. But that's neither here nor there. Game 5 was fascinating because coming into the game, we had this pitching matchup of Tyler Glasnow, Clayton Kershaw. Now, we talked about both of these pitchers are lesser versions of themselves in the postseason, of himself, I should say, in the postseason. Glasnow primarily, because of his control, right? It's not necessarily even a postseason thing. I just think right now he's not at his best. And Kershaw, of course, historically has underperformed in October. So I was really curious because these are two pitchers that are capable at any point of having a dominant start, for sure. We know that. So I was curious to see if one of them would have that. I thought it was a pretty well-pitched game on both sides. But again, both pitchers, kind of average, right? And that's not what you're looking for if you're the Dodgers as far as Clayton Kershaw, and if you're the Rays as far as Tyler Glasnow. So let's talk first about Clayton Kershaw. And I realized something after this game because I mean he did what he needed to do to get the win. Dodgers obviously now are 1 game away, so he didn't quite have the start that a cornerstone ace franchise pitcher you'd hope for, right? But he did what he needed to do. 2 runs through 5 2/3. It's above average. I mean, it's from an average pitcher, you would be very satisfied with that. And that's kind of what he's become in the postseason, if that is an average pitcher. Like I said, I don't really have any reason to believe that he is going to duplicate what he's able to do in the regular season in the postseason. So I don't look at him as a guy who's an outstanding pitcher and struggles in the postseason. I look at him as a guy who's an outstanding regular season pitcher and a below average postseason pitcher. I look at it as 2 completely different entities. But what I realized, now the Dodgers are staring at a 3-2 lead in the series, 1 game away from their first title in 32 years. Opportunity upon opportunity last couple of years to get that title and haven't been able to capitalize. Not only last couple of years, but even prior, falling out of the playoffs, much earlier than they would have hoped. So think about this for a second. The Dodgers now, this is a great example. Dodgers are 1 win away. Now, I think they're easily the superior team to Tampa Bay on paper, but they've struggled at times. They've been inconsistent in the series, and I think Tampa Bay, of course, Snell going tonight against Tony Gonsolin. Tampa Bay, I think, has the pitching advantage. I'm picking the Dodgers to win tonight and end the series, but certainly the Rays could win this game, and then Game 7, it's up for grabs, right? And a thing that I like to say is, if you get into a 7-game series and you get to a Game 7, okay, however good you are, however much better or worse you are than that other team on paper is completely out the window, because if you play a 7-game series and get to a 7th game and each team has won 3, then I think it's pretty evident that these 2 teams are at least close enough where anything can happen. So, stats aside, right? Eye test even aside, I think that's as good of an eye test, as good of an observation as you're going to have. 6 World Series games between 2 teams, and they split. That means to me that it can go either way in Game 7. So let's assume for a second that the Dodgers go on to win this series, because I think they will. They certainly have, an advantage, 3-2, and obviously a roster and talent advantage as well. And we look back at, previous Dodgers runs where they've made the World Series and when they haven't. And the missing link, in large part, has been Clayton Kershaw. Yet, this series, 2 games pitched from Kershaw, both of which were good, maybe, not great, certainly not great, but certainly not bad. Both games are what you're looking for from your 3, maybe your 2, to get the job done and give your offense a chance. That's what he's done in this series, is he's given his offense a chance, and when he's been out there, they've capitalized both times. So what does that tell us? Well, Clayton Kershaw has been the missing link in previous years. He has performed significantly worse in previous World Series than he has in this World Series. And the Dodgers, people talk about this, like it's going to be a historical, fact. The Dodgers have been about as close to winning a World Series over the last 5 years, you could even say 10, as you could possibly come without actually winning one. Right? Game 7 in 2017, back to the World Series in 2018. Last year, Game 5 loss against on paper at least, a much inferior team. So it's been that close, and Clayton Kershaw has been the missing link. So what does that tell us? Well, if Clayton Kershaw can just be average, think about what the Dodgers could have on their resume. They could have 2, 3, or more World Series titles. So to me, I look at this Game 5, where Clayton Kershaw now, it's a success for him when he has an average game in the postseason. The Dodgers fans see that as a success, they will take that. They would sign up for Clayton Kershaw 5 2/3, 2 runs for sure. And that's played into the narrative a little bit. The narrative that it's a strong outing, right? It's more than enough, right? It's enough, but had this been a guy that we had been depending on in the postseason, firing scoreless, 7 scoreless, 8 innings, 1-run ball consistently, this wouldn't look nearly as good, obviously. So my point is that Clayton Kershaw just needs to stay afloat for the Dodgers to potentially have, I think, 3. I can count probably 3 years where they have a real shot at a title, maybe even more, if Clayton Kershaw is just average. So I think Game 5, while it helps his legacy, for sure, Clayton Kershaw's that is, to prove that he is able to withstand the postseason. He's not able to dominate the postseason, but he's able to withstand it. 2 World Series games, both enough, and gives his offense a chance. So a lot of people look at that and they say, okay, now we're getting somewhere as far as his legacy. Now he's starting to prove himself in the postseason, and that's really obviously the one missing link is the postseason, because as a regular season pitcher, I think he's the best pitcher of this generation. So people are looking for things to go on here, looking for him, hoping, I'm rooting for him, hoping that he has good postseason starts so he can be seen as that guy. And a lot of people see this Game 5, the second quality outing, I would say, in this series for him as a legacy booster, which it is in a way. But I look at this game and I say, hold on. If he had just been able to do this in the past, in 2018, 2017, last year, in 2019, he blew the game out of the bullpen in Game 5 last year. The list goes on. If he could just be this, which, he looks like a number 3 right now. If he could just be this, or if the Dodgers had just thrown out someone else who could do this, and there are plenty of guys that can, where are the Dodgers today? I don't think, if that's the case, that their World Series drought is 32 years. So again, in a way, it certainly helps Clayton Kershaw's legacy that he was able to withstand the pressure this year. But I look at this and I say, what could have been had he just been able to get by in previous years? So now let's shift to Tyler Glasnow. So here's what I think about Tyler Glasnow, and this isn't necessarily predicated on what I saw in Game 5, but it's related. I think both Glasnow and Kershaw are underperforming right now, at least as I see it. I had Tyler Glasnow as like a top 5 to 7 pitcher in baseball this year. And let's not take anything away from the fact that he is a very good quality starting pitcher. But I have him as the best young pitcher in baseball in the American League. Down the road, I think 5-10 years, he is the guy to be feared in the American League. But he's not, he's been up and down. He's not having the success, that I think he can. And it's pretty evident that I think, that's coming from his command. His command is not there. His stuff is impeccable. His pitchability is outstanding. but it's command that he struggles with, which, I mean, many of you know. I see that, and many people see that as the most important piece of the puzzle, especially for a starting pitcher. So why do I still have him as the best young pitcher in the American League? Because nothing's changed. This is where intangibles come in, and this is where people fail to recognize intangibles and their importance when analyzing young players. Because what a lot of you guys do, and I don't want to put all of you into the same bubble. I'm sure there are some of you that don't fit this mold. But what a lot of people do when we're talking about young players is, however much success you have early, that's down the road going to be a nice mold for your career. Now, we all acknowledge that there are some players that pan out, that have great, rookie years, sophomore years, great early careers, and they pan out. They end up being that. And we know that there are players that don't. And a lot of baseball fans look at these really strong beginnings, of a career and say, I think this guy down the road is going to fulfill that. And some of you say, I think this guy is not. But it always sort of comes with a grain of salt, because a lot of you acknowledge in those arguments that you really don't know. Well, I challenge that, because certain players project to improve, certain players project to stay the same, and certain players project to regress. So when Gary Sanchez comes into Major League Baseball and has a marvelous rookie year, I'm saying the entire year, hold on, guys. This is not a Major League Baseball player down the road. And you said, well, I mean, but look at the stats. And how could you say that? I mean, I could understand maybe saying that he's not quite as good as this, but to say that he's going to be below average, I mean, it doesn't make any mathematical sense. Well, hold on. When I look at, a guy like Gary Sanchez, and the point of this argument is not to single him out, but I see a guy whose effort is lacking, who has a long, heavy swing, which, like we've talked about, pitchers can adapt, and if he has to adapt, he's going to lose some of that pop. He hasn't adapted. He's opted to keep his power, and he has lost out in other ways. And then I look at a guy like an Aaron Judge. Okay, stay on the Yankees for a second, who has, again, an insane rookie year, but projects to, I would say, probably, I wouldn't say improve necessarily, but perhaps improve, and at the very least stay the same, because the intangibles are there, the effort is there, the baseball IQ is there, the attitude is there, and if all else fails, he is such a good presence on the team, in the locker room, that he can contribute to winning baseball games. Now I look at Tyler Glasnow, and a lot of you are under the impression that he's an extremely talented pitcher who might not be quite as good as we thought, which is true right now, but I'm not taking anything away from what he's doing down the road, because what I'm seeing from him looks like struggling early, not evidence of what he's going to become, because the intangibles are there with Tyler Glasnow. He has a superb attitude. He is very smart and eloquent when talking about pitching and baseball, and after starts, his interviews that he does and his press conferences that he does, you can tell that he's very adept at understanding, himself as a pitcher, as a person, as a teammate, as a player. And I mean, and again, there's a difference between being focused on improvement, right? Trevor Bauer's focused on improvement, but I don't think he quite has the right attitude about it. And we're not going to get into more detail about that. We talked about this the other day, but Tyler Glasnow is a guy who I think is very keen at understanding his flaws in a particular outing and also his strengths and using them to his advantage next time around. Very, very self-aware. So these are intangible things that are very, very relevant when analyzing how a player is going to look down the road. So again, I encourage all of you, don't look at stats and then say, well, okay, this guy's, based on his stats, this guy looks like he's going to be this. Or this guy has really good stats, and I think he's going to be this. Or you know what? I don't think he's going to be this. No. Look at the stats, watch them play, and look at them as a person. Because, again, these are all people. And there are factors going on that none of us know, none of us have the ability to know, that play into their careers. Some of them we can detect, some of them we can estimate, some of them we can't, but there are some things there to look for. And I think with Tyler Glasnow, the struggles right now are command related. And this is a guy who's easy triple digits. I mean, fluid release, 6'8", electric arm, long, athletic. So he doesn't overthrow, right? He's not a max effort guy. His stride is not particularly long. I think it's mechanical adjustments and perhaps discipline that can help him round out his control. These are things a guy like, Aroldis Chapman, when he comes up as a major leaguer, and his control has improved, but you had to know that he was never going to be, a dot kind of guy. You had to know he was never going to be inside, outside, up, and down. He's going to be more power over finesse. Tyler Glasnow has the ability to be both. Right now he has power, he has movement, he has stuff, and the control's not there. But like I said, some guys, the control's not there, and it's not going to be there. And some guys, the control's not there, and it will improve. And I think that the vast majority of fans just kind of guess when picking between those two. And I don't think you have to guess. I think there are things to look for in personality, in body, structure and physical abilities, and the way they talk about their craft. So two very different but somewhat, some similarities here, starters in Game 5 that I think was a very interesting thing to look at during that game. Now, just to round out the show, Game 6 is about to start, but I want to preview that a little bit. Like I said, I'm picking the Dodgers tonight. I think both starting pitchers, Snell and Gonsolin, will be more than adequate. I think they'll both be pretty good. And I think the Rays bullpen is going to finally crumble. It's been way better than I've thought personally throughout this postseason. And I think this will finally be the game. Dodgers offense is very, very hot right now. And I think they're just kind of at the end of their line. And it's a bullpen and a pitching staff that's just pieced together, kind of in a novel way. And I think at some point it's going to fall apart. And I think the Dodgers more traditional and honestly hot bullpen. I think their bullpen is doing some pretty good things right now. Obviously Kenley Jansen blew the save, and he's been known to do that. I would not expect him to be the closer in a one-run game, but I would expect them potentially to try to get him the save if it's like a 2-run, 3-run game, maybe even a 1-run game. I don't know. It's kind of like a Bill Buckner situation where maybe they try to get him out there just, for his sake when it's not necessarily in the best interest of the team. But I do think at this point the momentum's with the Dodgers, and the Rays have been, getting by on energy and intangibles, which, like you guys know, I think are great and very, very important. But at some point, that stuff is going to run out if you're not, up to speed talent-wise. So I'm going to go with the Dodgers tonight. By way of a score, I would say I'm gonna say close game. I'm going to say 5-4. I think it's going to be a one-run game. I do. But that's going to do it for today's show. Go ahead and watch that game, obviously if you're interested. And, I don't know when we'll be back at it. I mean, probably Friday, I would say. I mean, if the series ends tonight, I'd like to do a show tomorrow, obviously, to react. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But anyway, thanks for watching. Have a healthy, happy, and safe rest of your Tuesday. Sorry again for no Tuesday top 10. We'll try to bring that back soon. And, yeah, thanks again for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, recommend, all that great stuff if you feel inclined to do so. And have a good Tuesday, and hopefully we'll be back soon. All right. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. Peace.